Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, expecting everything to be completely normal, just like every other day. Still half asleep, you reach over toward your phone without thinking twice about it. Like every single morning, the very first thing you want to check is the time. But instead of seeing the time, you're greeted by absolutely nothing at all. Thinking your phone is broken, you quickly look down at your smartwatch instead. Its screen is completely dead too, showing absolutely no signs of life whatsoever. Maybe it's just your devices, so your eyes slowly turn toward the wall clock. The clock's hands haven't moved at all. They're frozen completely in place. Then it hits you that every clock and every single watch has suddenly stopped working. Every device that could possibly tell the time has simply stopped forever, all at once. At first, it almost feels like a tiny inconvenience that everyone will laugh about. After all, people survived thousands of years without smartphones or digital clocks. You might even think, we'll just look outside and use the sun instead. But then, a simple question suddenly pops into your mind that changes everything. How do you actually know what time it is without a single working clock? You suddenly realize you've never truly needed to figure it out on your own. Within just a few hours, confusion quietly begins spreading from house to house. Nobody knows whether they're running late or whether they're actually early. For the very first time, the entire world loses something it always took for granted. And that's when the real problems finally begin to reveal themselves. The very first thing that disappears isn't time itself. It's certainty about what time it actually is. Without clocks, every single person begins making completely different guesses about the hour. Some people believe it's still early morning, while others are convinced it's almost lunchtime. Nobody can actually prove who's right anymore because every clock has gone silent. People begin arriving at work whenever they think the workday is supposed to begin. Inside the office, nobody can agree whether the day has already started or not. Meetings become impossible because nobody knows exactly when they're supposed to happen. Even something as simple as meeting a friend suddenly becomes much harder than you imagined. "I'll meet you later" suddenly becomes one of the most confusing sentences anyone can say. For the first time in modern history, the word later no longer has a clear meaning. It turns out that humans aren't nearly as good at estimating time as we like to believe. Even if you tried your absolute best, your guess could still be completely wrong. Most people can easily be off by an hour, or sometimes even much more. Our brains simply weren't designed to measure time with that kind of precision. Without realizing it, we've trained ourselves to depend on clocks every single day. Almost every decision we make depends on knowing exactly what time it is. Now imagine billions of people all trying to guess the same time at once. Every person feels confident, yet almost nobody agrees with each other. The confusion spreads faster than anyone expects, reaching nearly every part of daily life. And believe it or not, the biggest problems haven't even started yet. What most people don't realize is that the internet itself depends on accurate time every single second. Every email you send secretly carries the exact moment it was created. The same thing happens with every text message, every photo, and every file you save. Every one of those actions is recorded with an incredibly precise timestamp. Without those timestamps, computers quickly begin disagreeing with one another. Instead of sharing information smoothly, they begin rejecting perfectly normal data. Imagine opening your cloud storage and finding files that appear to come from the future. Some documents suddenly look older than they should, while others seem impossible. Even logging into your favorite apps could suddenly become much more difficult, because many security systems quietly rely on knowing the exact time to protect your account. But the internet isn't the only thing that quietly depends on incredibly accurate clocks. One of the biggest systems you use every day is something called GPS. Most people think GPS works by simply showing where you are on a map, but that's actually not how GPS figures out your location at all. Instead, it begins with satellites constantly sending out incredibly precise time signals. Your phone listens to those signals and measures exactly how long they take to arrive. Even the tiniest difference in timing completely changes where your phone thinks you are. Light moves so unbelievably fast that tiny timing mistakes become enormous distance errors. An error of only 1/1,000,000th of a second can move your location by hundreds of meters. Without perfectly accurate clocks, your navigation could suddenly point almost anywhere. Now imagine that same timing problem affecting thousands of airplanes flying across the world. Every single flight depends on incredibly precise timing to keep passengers safe. Air traffic controllers constantly coordinate aircraft that may never even see each other. Without reliable time, that coordination suddenly becomes much more complicated. Flights probably wouldn't fall from the sky, but many would never even leave the ground. The safest decision would simply be delaying flights until everything could be verified. The same problem would quickly spread to trains carrying millions of people every day. Railways rely on carefully planned schedules that keep trains safely separated. If nobody knows the correct time, those carefully planned schedules begin falling apart. Transportation wouldn't instantly collapse, but the entire world would suddenly slow down. But transportation isn't the only thing that depends on knowing the exact time. Believe it or not, even your money quietly depends on incredibly accurate clocks every day. Every payment you make is carefully recorded in the exact order that it happens. Banks constantly compare those records to make sure every transaction is correct. Without reliable timestamps, computers can no longer agree on what happened first. Imagine two people sending money at almost the exact same moment. If nobody knows which payment happened first, computers suddenly face a huge problem. Stock markets face an even bigger challenge because millions of trades happen every second. Every trade must be placed in the exact order that it actually occurred. Without trusted time, the world's financial system becomes far less reliable almost overnight. At this point, you're probably wondering if we could simply use the sun like people once did. After all, ancient civilizations managed to survive for thousands of years without modern clocks. They watched the sun carefully and learned its daily journey across the sky. The changing length of shadows gave them surprisingly useful clues about the time. Some cultures even built sundials that could estimate the passing hours during the day. Others looked to the stars each night to understand the passing of time. Those methods worked surprisingly well, but only for the world they lived in. Today's world demands far more precision than simply knowing it's around midday. Cloudy weather alone would make estimating the time almost impossible for millions of people. And once the sun disappears below the horizon, that simple solution disappears with it. Thankfully, losing every clock forever wouldn't actually mean that time itself was gone. It would simply mean that humanity would need to build entirely new clocks from scratch. That might sound impossible, but scientists already know exactly how to do it. The real challenge wouldn't be building clocks. It would be making every clock agree again. Today's official time doesn't come from an ordinary watch sitting on someone's wrist. Instead, it comes from some of the most accurate machines humanity has ever created. These incredible machines are known as atomic clocks, and they're astonishingly precise. They measure tiny vibrations inside atoms with accuracy that's almost impossible to imagine. They're so accurate that they barely lose a second over millions of years. With new atomic clocks running again, humanity could finally begin putting the world back together. But rebuilding the clocks would only be the first step toward fixing the modern world. After that, every country would need to synchronize with the exact same time once again. Millions of computers would slowly reconnect as they finally agreed with one another again. GPS satellites would begin sharing reliable timing signals with Earth once more. Little by little, navigation systems everywhere would finally become accurate again. Banks would carefully verify their records before safely processing transactions again. Airports would gradually welcome passengers back as flights returned to normal schedules. Trains, buses, and cities would slowly regain the rhythm they had lost. It would take time, patience, and teamwork, but humanity would eventually recover. Because throughout history, solving impossible problems has always been one of humanity's greatest strengths. It's funny how we spend our entire lives checking the time without ever questioning what it really is. Most of us simply accept that clocks always work and never stop to think about them. Yet behind every ordinary day is an invisible system working with incredible precision. Most people never notice it because it's doing its job perfectly every single second. Remove that invisible system, and everyday life suddenly becomes far more complicated than anyone expected. Something as simple as knowing the time quietly connects billions of people around the planet. Without realizing it, every phone, airplane, satellite, and computer depends on that shared agreement. It's one of the greatest examples of humanity working together without even thinking about it. One invisible agreement helps keep nearly every part of modern civilization moving smoothly. And that's exactly why losing something so ordinary would completely change the world we know today. In the end, the most important thing we would lose isn't the clocks themselves. It's our shared sense of time. Time is invisible, yet it quietly connects billions of people every single day. Every morning begins because millions of people unknowingly trust the very same system. From classrooms to hospitals, nearly everything depends on everyone staying synchronized together. It's one of humanity's greatest achievements, even though most people never notice it exists. Sometimes the most extraordinary inventions are the ones quietly working in the background. We rarely stop to appreciate them because they almost never fail us. But imagining a world without them reminds us just how valuable they truly are. Even something as ordinary as checking the time is part of an incredible global system. And once you understand that system, you'll never look at a simple clock the same way again. Maybe the greatest inventions aren't always the ones we can see with our own eyes. Sometimes they're the invisible systems quietly working behind everything we do every day. Every message, every journey, and every payment depends on that invisible agreement. Without all of us sharing the same time, modern civilization simply couldn't move together. Something as ordinary as a clock quietly helps keep billions of lives synchronized every single day. It's easy to overlook something that never asks for attention while always doing its job. But imagining life without it shows just how deeply connected our world has truly become. Behind every ordinary moment is an extraordinary network quietly keeping everything in balance. And perhaps that's what makes accurate time one of humanity's greatest hidden achievements. Because without it, the world wouldn't disappear. It would simply lose its rhythm. The modern world doesn't simply run on electricity, computers, or the internet. It also runs on something we almost never think about. Every phone call, every journey, every payment, and every message quietly depends on the same invisible foundation. That foundation isn't something you can touch or even see, but it's always there, keeping everything synchronized. It's humanity's shared understanding of one simple question: what time is it? Without that shared agreement, even the smartest technology in the world begins to struggle. Sometimes the smallest ideas end up supporting the biggest parts of civilization. And maybe that's why understanding everyday science can completely change how we see the world around us. The next time you check the time, you'll know there's an incredible story quietly hidden behind that simple number. Science is full of ordinary things hiding extraordinary secrets, if you know where to look. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next science adventure.